Jasudanandana Braja Janaranjana Jasudanandana Braja Janaranjana Ramunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jasudanandana Raja Janaranjana Jasudanandana Raja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Good morning, devotees. Hare Krishna. I'm going to change the sound. Okay. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 8th chapter, text number 21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dirayat Nasta Prayeshavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamas Loke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Here's a verse. Shvelikayam Mamrisha Samadhina Milita Drisham Prema Sambrambena Chakita Gatya Prishad Aparusha Vishanagrena Luthati. Synonyms. Kshvelikayam, well plain, mam, unto me, mrisha, feigning, samadhina, by a meditational trance, amidita drisham, with closed eyes, prima, samrambena, because of anger due to love, chakita, with fear, agatya, coming, prishat, like drops of water, aparusha, very soft, vishana, of the horns, agrena, by the point, lutati, touches my body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Alas, the small deer, while playing with me and seeing me feigning meditation with closed eyes, would circumambulate me due to anger arising from love, and it would fearfully touch me with the points of its soft horns, which felt like drops of water. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Now King Bharata considers his meditation false. While engaged in meditation, he was actually thinking of his deer, and he would feel great pleasure when the animal pricked him with the points of its horns. Feigning meditation, the king would actually think of the animal, and this was but a sign of his downfall. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Kam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatarnam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyam Ishwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha. This is a continuation of the same theme. We may think, wait, I get the point. Why does it have to go on and on like this? But these are lessons. We are totally used to the idea of hearing the same thing from someone, like our spouse, our friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, father, son. This is very common that we receive an instruction, even if it may not come as an instruction, maybe just advice or a comment, but we hear it again and again. So what is a big deal? This is a whole chapter, or more than a chapter, talking about a great man. This is no ordinary being. This Maharaj Bharat. He is a direct descendant of a supreme person, Rishabhadev, and therefore he his example is notable in the sense that we have to see it as this is an instruction for my benefit, not just that we see this is an ancient story. Okay, got the point. You don't become too attached to an animal or something like that is very specific. This is an instruction about the object of the senses. This is a common theme in our literature, the objects of the senses. What are the objects of the senses? There's so many. The world is full of them. And people have different twists. We're all individuals, so we may have attachment to a particular object of the senses. In this case, Maharaj Bharata became attached to a small deer that became completely dependent. And as with young children and animals, they're very playful. They just want to play. And the king couldn't change the nature of the deer, but the deer changed the nature of the king as he was engaged in serious meditation. And now, even the king has realized that he is just faking his meditation. He closes his eyes, but he's thinking of the deer and he's waiting for the deer to poke him. And this so-called pure love is actually deterring him from a pursuit of spiritual life. So the king is having a fall down, a serious fall down. We may not consider this is just got some kind of distraction. Just like when we get distraction, when we are chanting japa or when we are doing kirtan, because it's very common that we get distracted. And it doesn't seem like a big deal. We do it every day. We get distracted every day. And the Gita says you should go back to the self. You should just realize where you're situated, how your mind has again escaped your control, and then bring it back under the control of the self. So the king, at this point, he had no control. He could not bring the mind back to think of the Supreme, think of his ablutions and his sacrifices and his ritual. He was completely conquered by the affection of this deer. Why are there so many kitty videos? Because people love to see animals being cute. So what could be more cute than a small deer? They're adorable animals. And even a king, a powerful king, in the stage of Baba, got distracted and deviated from his duty. His duty was to pursue self-realization. And he was, at this point, faking his meditation. He says it. While playing with me and seeing me feigning meditation with closed eyes, would circumambulate me due to anger arising from love. And it would fearfully touch me with the points of its soft horns, which felt like drops of water. This emotion exists in its pure form in the spiritual world. Like when Satyabhama is very contrary. Radharani is not like that. But Satyabhama, Rukmini is more like Radharani, I would say, more submissive type, but Satyabhama is contrary. And this anger arising from love is actually very appealing to Krishna. So this emotion exists in its pure form, but in this case, it's just a dumb animal. We may attribute human qualities to the animals, and in a certain way, the animals have a range of emotions, which include certain things, certain nuances, but they're dumb. They can't really understand things. They understand basic commands and certain emotions, and that's it. And we appreciate things like that the animals have to offer, like companionship and loyalty, like in the case of dogs. Of course, cats are not loyal. Cats will go with whomever feeds them, basically. And yeah, there are very few animals that are loyal. And they're dumb. They cannot understand things like humans do. And is less trouble, I would say, to have a relationship with an animal that to have it with a human, because humans have different desires. And the king completely lost the plot of his self-realization practice from thinking of the deer. Where is the deer? How is he feeling? And why is it not here? And has he been killed, mauled, attacked by wild animals like boars and tigers and dogs, wild dogs? Prabhupada mentions in a purport that boars and dogs, they just go in a group, whereas tigers, they hunt alone. So has he been attacked by any of these beasts that inhabit the forests? And the king is lost. His meditation is gone. His practice is gone. He is now enamored by an animal. And this reminds me of a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, verse 6 out of the 3rd chapter. Karmenjani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran indirartam vibhudatma mityachara sa uchate. The translation goes like this: one who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. Purport: there are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness, but make a show of meditation while actually dwelling within the mind upon sense enjoyment. Such pretenders may also speak on dry philosophy in order to bluff sophisticated followers. But according to this verse, these are the greatest cheaters. For sense enjoyment, one can act in any capacity of the social order, but if one follows the rules and regulations of his particular status, he can make gradual progress in purifying his existence. But he who makes a show of being a yogi while actually searching for the objects of sense gratification must be called the greatest cheater, even though he sometimes speaks of philosophy. His knowledge has no value because the effects of such a sinful man's knowledge are taken away by the illusory energy of the Lord. Such a pretender's mind is always impure, and therefore his show of yogic meditation has no value whatsoever. When I read this verse, when I came to Krishna consciousness, I got to I started to read the Gita. And then I read this: one who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. So when I realized, oh, that's me, I had to go back. So I started the Gita again. And it happened to me 3 times that as soon as I got to this verse, I thought, no, I cannot pass this verse. I am this person described in this verse. I was perhaps a little hard on myself because I just started Krishna consciousness, and one brings the object of the senses with oneself. It's not like, okay, I'm transitioning into Krishna consciousness, so there will be no more Maya in my life. I actually thought that I would become a pure devotee in a month. Imagine that. Imagine what a petulant being that will think that, yes, I can achieve perfection in Krishna consciousness within a month. Even within a lifetime is just illusion. We depend, if we depend on our own devices, then it will take a lot longer. But fortunately, Lord Chaitanya has devised a plan for all of us with chanting the holy name and the association of devotees and living in a holy place and accepting a guru. These are much needed help that we can get along the path. So to try to think that one will achieve Krishna consciousness by oneself, by one's own merit, by one's own effort is very pretentious, is a show. Because all the things will eventually fade away. It's like a fad. It's like a new toy. Children get something for Christmas and they fight over it to play with it. But within a few days, you find the same toy strewn somewhere. It's in a corner and nobody cares. It's a new toy. So if we depend on our own strength and our own capacity, then we'll have no hope to achieve Krishna consciousness. But because of the mercy of Guru Krishna and the Vaishnavas, we may have a chance to achieve something valuable. But we cannot forget that the object of the senses have been our semi-perennial companions. We have been going around the material world. Brahmanda Bhumite Kona Bhagyavana Jiva. Guru Krishna Prasadapai Bhakti Lata Bij. This Bhakti Lata Bij is so rare. Brahmanda Bhumite Kona Bhagyavan. Bhagyavan means fortunate. It is calculated that our chances of finding a guru and achieving the mercy of Krishna are equal to that of a turtle swimming in the Pacific Ocean and coming for air and putting the head through a piece of wood that has a hole exactly the size of the head. So those are our chances. So we are extremely fortunate to have come into the association of devotees, and now we cannot take it for granted. And we need each other in order to get to our goal, which is Krishna Prema. Nothing short of that is our goal. Our goal is to achieve love of Krishna because it's the only cure for all maladies. Otherwise, there will be hankering. Okay. Today is the disappearance of one of the great stalwarts acharyas in our line, Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He, one of the 6 Goswamis, he knew, witnessed that different Goswamis and different devotees, they were worshiping deities. Like Jiva Goswami was worshiping Radha Damodar, and so on. So they all had forms, and Gopal Bhatta had a bunch of Shalagram Shilas he was worshiping. So he took them to the Yamuna for the daily bath. And when he took them in a bucket, and when he took them out of the water, this time, out of one of the Shilas, the form of Shri Radha Ramanji manifested. There is still, I haven't seen that, but there is still in the back of his shoulder the shape of the original Shila. And there's an adorable form of Krishna, which is a combination of the beauty of Govinda, Gopinath, and Madan Mohan. So is for those who haven't seen the form of Radha Raman, is absolutely mesmerizing. And Prabhupada said that we should learn worship from the Goswamis of Radha Raman. So let's read a little bit from the life of Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami, whose disappearance, as I said, is today. Nangamanjari yasit sadya Gopala Bhattaka Bhatta Goswami nam kechi rahu Shri Gunamanjari. She, who was formerly an Angamanjari, has appeared to enrich Mahaprabhu's pastimes as Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Some say that Gopal Bhatta is actually Gunamanjari. This is from a Gora Ganodesh Deepika 184. This is a book written by Srila Kavi Karnapur, the son of Shivananda Sena, who describes who is who in Gora Lila and tracing them to Krishna Lila. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami appeared in 1500 AD. According to some authorities, he was born in 1503 as the son of Venkatavat in the town of Srirangam in South India. Their residence was in a village not far from Srirangam called Belgundi. According to Narahari in the Bhakti Ratnakar, Mahaprabhu gave Gopal Bhatta a dream vision through which he could witness all of his Navadvip pastimes. Through Gopal, though Gopal was an eternal associate of Krishna, he appeared in a faraway place in order to make a special contribution to Lord Gauranga's pastimes. Thus, even though he was living too far away to know anything about the Lord directly, he was still able to know long before he met the Lord in person that he had appeared and taken sannyas. For those who haven't been to that part of the world, Sri Rangam is a fantastic place to visit. It's a very sattvic place in Tamil Nadu, and the home of Ramanujacharya, whose body is preserved. You can actually see him sitting in meditation. He's covered with camphor and sandalwood pulp, and you can see his body. You can see his fingernails are long, etc. As a member of his Vrindavan entourage, Gopal Bhatta did not particularly like the Lord's appearance as a sannyas. This austere form distressed Gopal, who was thus crying alone when the Lord appeared to him and gave him the vision of his form as a householder in Navadvip. Gopal was overwhelmed with astonishment at seeing the Lord's beauty, and he fell down at his feet. When he looked up, the Lord had transformed into his sannyasi form again. Calming Gopal, he gave him some instructions and then foretold that he would go to Vrindavan before long and then there make disciples who would spread his teachings throughout the world. The Lord then embraced Gopal and drenched him in his tears. He then told Gopal to keep all these revelations a secret. He then disappeared, leaving Gopal in a state of intense joy. This is from a Bhakti Ratnakar. This book is fantastic as well. The Lord's teachings to Gopal's father. No long thereafter, in 1510, Mahaprabhu made his auspicious entrance to the pilgrimage city of Srirangam. He was invited by Venkatabhata, a Vaishnava of the Sri Sampradaya, to spend the 4 months of the Chaturmasya in his house. Knowing him to be a strict Vaishnava, Mahaprabhu accepted his invitation. In fact, the Lord's pastime of coming to Srirangam and staying at Venkatabhata's home was to give his mercy to Gopal Bhatta and his family, for the Lord knew that Gopal, his eternal companion, had appeared there. We were there in the house of Venkatabhata. There's a little courtyard with columns like one sees in the paintings of Lord Chaitanya, his Sankirtan party, and there are deities of Jagannath, Baladeva, and Subhadra, but they have actually human features. You can see them. They are Jagannath deities, but their face is human, like very amazing. At this time, Gopal Bhatta was still a young boy. He was fortunate enough to be able to serve the Lord by massaging his feet. Even though he was satisfied with Venkatabhata and his family's service, the Lord observed that Venkata had an element of pride in his object of worship. He believed that his worshipable deity, Lakshmi Narayan, was the supreme worshipable object, and that Narayan was the source of all other incarnations, including Krishna, Rama, and Nrsimha. His reasoning was that Narayan is never born, he is Aja, while Krishna and Rama take birth in this world. He thus thought, Mahaprabhu worships Krishna, the incarnation of Narayan, while we worship Narayan, the source of all incarnations. As Madhusudan is the destroyer of false pride, Mahaprabhu finally decided one day that he would do so for Venkata. He asked him in a mild, humor, witty tone, Venkata, I hear that no one is equal in opulence to your Lord Narayan. The same is true for a worshipable goddess Lakshmi Devi. On the other hand, the object of my worship, Krishna, has no opulences of any kind. He wears garlands of wild forest flowers and uses peacock feathers for decoration. He is a son of Nanda Gopa and spends his days grazing the cows with the other cowherd boys. My worshipable goddesses, the gopis, are also nothing but poor cowherd girls. I wonder, therefore, why your worshipable Lakshmi Devi came to Vrindavan to perform austerities in the hope of gaining Krishna's company in the rasa dance. Venkata immediately answered, what's wrong with that? Radha's beloved Krishna is none different from Lakshmi Devi's husband Narayan. Siddhantatas dvabedepi Shrisa Krishna Swarupayo Raseno Krishyate Krishna Krishna Rupam Esha Rasastiti. Though according to theological doctrine, Krishna and the husband of Lakshmi are identical in essence, the form of Krishna is superior when analyzed from a point of view of divine sentiment. This is a conclusion based on the analysis of divine sentiment. This is from a Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Since the divine sentiment in Krishna is superior, there is no fault if Lakshmi Devi chooses to seek his association and performs austerities to that end. Mahaprabhu answered, I'm not saying that there is any fault. I agree that from a transcendental point of view, Krishna and Narayan are identical. The difference between them is based on the variety of rasa. When the Lord performed pastimes of opulence, he is Narayan. When he performs pastimes of sweetness, he is Krishna. She who is Radha in Krishna's pastime is Lakshmi in the pastimes of Narayan. Thus, when Lakshmi performs austerities to have the association of Krishna, there is no question of her breaking her vows of fidelity to her husband. Thus, she went to perform these austerities in Vrindavan. But I have another question for you. Why, even after trying so hard through such penances, etc., to enter Krishna's Rasa Lila, was Lakshmi still unable to do so? Venkatavata was terribly distressed at being unable to give the Lord an answer. Mahaprabhu observed his distress and tried to pacify him by saying, "You yourself said that Narayana and Krishna are identical from a theological point of view, but that the superiority of Krishna is determined by an analysis of the divine sentiments. Narayana is involved in 2.5 of the 5 principal rasas, whereas Krishna is experienced through the complete manifestation of all 12 rasas, the 5 principal and 7 secondary sentiments. Since Narayan's Lila is primarily one of opulence and majesty, his principal devotee is Lakshmi, who also worships him in the appropriate mood of awe and reverence. The same Lakshmi Devi is Radhika in order to heighten the experience of romantic love. Unless one follows in the footsteps of Radha and her expansions, the gopis, who are the repositories of the erotic sentiment, then it is impossible to relish Krishna's sweet qualities, such as those virtues which are particularly inspiring for the romantic mood of love. The reason for Lakshmi Devi's failure is that she did not follow in the gopis' footsteps, but continued to perform her austerities in the mood of awe and reverence. As a result, she repeatedly found herself in the company of Narayan and never in that of Krishna. By way of contrast, the Shrutis follow the gopis in the Raga marg, and so were ultimately able to achieve Krishna's service in the erotic mood. As long as one continues to think of Krishna in majestic terms as Lord and Creator of the universe, one cannot possibly worship in the spirit of Raganuga Bhakti. Krishna has one extraordinary characteristic. By his sweetness, he attracts the minds of the entire world. By taking on the mood of the Vraja gopis, one can attain to his lotus feet. The people of Vraja have no idea that Krishna is the Lord and Creator of the universe. Some think of him as their son and even tie him to a mortar, while others take him to be their friend and climb on his shoulders. The people of Vraja only know him as the son of Nanda, whereas in the attitude of awe and reverence, the devotee does not have a concept of such a relationship to him. One who takes the attitude of a resident of Vraja will attain Krishna as the son of the king of Vraja in Vrindavan. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. When the gopis, the objects of my worship, were abandoned by Krishna in the rasa dance, they began to cry in the intensity of their distress at not seeing him. Krishna came to them in the form of Narayan, but the gopis simply paid their obeisances and moved on in search of Krishna, showing absolutely no interest in him as a lover. When Radharani stood before the disguised Krishna, however, he could not maintain the four-armed form, but once again appeared in his form as a holder of the flute. Such is the power of Radharani's love. That's from a Bhakti Ratnaka. Nandanandan Krishna is the avatari, or source of all incarnations. Narayan, Brahman, Shinga, etc. are all his incarnations and expansions. Krishna is Swayam Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his other divine forms are also given the appellation of Bhagavan. He alone, however, can be called the Swayam Bhagavan, or primeval, Supreme Lord. That's from a Chaitanya Charitamrita. Cham Sakala Pumsa Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. This is from the Bhagavatam. All the previously mentioned forms of the Lord are either plenary or partial expansions. Krishna alone is the original personality of Godhead. He and his expansions appear in every age to bring joy to this world when tormented by the enemies of the demigods. Through the power of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu's merciful association, Venkatabhata, his brother, Prabodhananda Saraswati, his son, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, and all the other members of his family were inspired to give up the worship of Lakshmi Narayan and became engaged in the exclusive devotional service of Radha and Krishna. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami took initiation from his uncle, Sridandi Yati Srimad Prabodhananda Saraswati. Proof of this is found in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Bhaktar Vilasam Chinute Prabodha Nandasya Shishu Bhagavat Priyasyas. Upala Bhato Raghunatha Dasam Santoshayam Rupa Sanatanocha. Gopal Bhatta, the disciple of Prabodhananda, who is dear to the Lord, has collected these devotional activities to satisfy Raghunath Das, Rupa, and Sanatana Goswamis. This is from the Hari Bhakti Vilas. Gopal's parents were very fortunate, for they surrendered themselves, life and soul, to the feet of Lord Chaitanya. They ordered their son to go to Vrindavan before they left this world, absorbed in meditating on the Lord. Gopal traveled directly to Vrindavan, where he met with Rupa and Sanatan. That's from the Bhakti Ratnakar. When Gopal arrived in Vrindavan, Rupa and Sanatan wrote to Mahaprabhu to tell him. The Lord was overjoyed and immediately wrote back, telling them to affectionately take care of him as though he were their own younger brother. Srila Sanatana Goswami compiled the Hari Bhakti Vilas and published it in Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami's name. Rupa Goswami considered Gopal to be as dear to him as his own life and engaged him in the deity worship of Radha Raman. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami became one of the 6 Goswamis, but he always kept an attitude of meekness and humility. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami became one of the 6 Goswamis, but he always kept an attitude of meekness and humility. Thus, when Krishnadas Kaviraj approached him for permission to write the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he granted it, but under the condition that he not write about him. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami could not go against the order of Gopal Bhatta and thus did nothing more than mention his name. Srijiva Goswami writes in his introduction to the Sat Sandarbha that he wrote it on the basis of an earlier text by Gopal Bhatta. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami also wrote a book called the Sat Kriya Saradipika, Light of the Essential Sacraments for the Vaishnavas. Thus, his contribution to Gaudiya Vaishnava literature was in editing the Hari Bhakti Vilas, preparing the notes for Jiva Sat Sandarbha, and in compiling the Sat Kriya Saradipika. He also gave great joy to the community of devotees by writing a commentary on Bilva Mangala's Krishna Karnamrita. Amongst his disciples were Srinivasacharya and Sri Gopinath Pujari. The following story is told about Gopinath Pujari becoming Gopal Bhatta's disciple. One day, Gopal Bhatta went to visit the town of Sharanpur, not far from Hardwar. On that occasion, a simple devoted Brahmin engaged in his service in a most unpretentious manner. He had no children, but desired to have a son. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami knew the desire of a Brahmin and blessed him that he would have a devotionally minded male child. The Brahmin promised Gopal Bhatta that he would give him his first son to be his servant and disciple. This son was Gopinath Pujari. It is said that Mahaprabhu had such affection for Gopal Bhatta that he sent him his own belt and coping, as well as a wooden seat that he used. These items are still worshipped in the Radha Raman temple by the current Sevas. When Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami was visiting the pilgrimage centers of northern India, he found a Shalagram Shila on the banks of his Gandaki river. He took the worshipable stone form and carried it with him wherever he went, attending to it as Rajendranand Krishna himself. One day he thought that he would like to worship the Lord in Aditi form so that he could expand his service. On the very next day, he found that the Shalagram Shila had transformed itself into Radha Raman to fulfill the wish of his devotee. This deity stands alone without any form of Radha standing by his side. Instead, as a symbol of Radharani, a silver crown is placed on his left side. The story is also told in the following way. It is said that Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami used to daily worship 12 shalagrams. He developed a desire to serve the Lord in the form of a deity, thinking that in this way he would be able to worship him in a much better way. The Lord within his heart knew his feelings. Through a rich merchant, he was provided with many beautiful items used in the worship of the deity, such as ornaments and clothes sent to him. Gopal began to worry that all these beautiful objects would be wasted because there was no way that he could use them unless he had a deity in human form. That night, he put the shalagrams to rest, and in the morning, he saw that one of them had been transformed into the Radharaman deity. When Rupa and Sanatan heard that Krishna had so mercifully appear to Gopal Bhatta, they immediately came with the other devotees for darshan. When they saw him, they were ecstatic with love. The annual festival commemorating Radharaman's appearance when he is paid publicly takes place on the full moon day of Vaishak. The Radharaman temple is considered one of the most important in Vrindavan. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami ended his earthly pastimes on the Krishna Panchami of Asar of 1507 of the Sakra era, 1585 AD. His Samadhi temple is behind the current Radharaman temple. By reading Srinivasacharya's hymn to the 6 Goswamis, Sat Goswami Astaka, we can understand their glories. Srila Gopal Bhatta Goswami Ki Jai. So, any questions or comments? Listen, bring a picture of Radharamanji so you can see. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's great to hear about Gopal Bhatta Goswami. I thank you for that reading. Nice to see the wonderful transcendental form of Sri Radharamanji. He has a marvelous Tribhanga form, threefold bending form. It's absolutely captivating.
Oh, okay. 1 second. I'm being. Let's see. I'm gonna send a picture to the Gita Nagari Connections group of Radharaman. As he's, and this is a very recent picture, like from yesterday.
Wow, beautiful.
Yes, I do have a little lila with this particular picture of Radharaman. I was in the Brooklyn Temple. I had a center in Connecticut, in New Haven, and I will go and spend half the week in New York City, where I would distribute books. And I was staying in the 4th floor as a brahmachari, 4th floor of the Brooklyn Temple, and I didn't know there was anything above. But one day I saw some stairs, and I went upstairs, and there was a terrace. It was a winter, and there was a Tulsi house. So I was very surprised. I went inside the Tulsi house, and I paid my obeisances. And through my legs, on the opposite wall, I saw this picture. I hadn't seen a picture of Radharaman before. I was totally mesmerized by it. And the picture was upside down, which means because my head was upside down, I could see it straight up. And I thought, wow, this this is the most beautiful form of Krishna I've ever seen. And I wanted it for myself. And I felt ashamed. Oh my God, this belongs to Tulsi. And I am just a thief, just a regular thief. So I felt shame. So I went I got up and I went where the picture was upside down, hanging. It wasn't touching the floor, but it was very close to the floor. I don't know how I was being held, no idea. So I lifted it, put it right side up, and looked for a nail on one of the wooden columns where it was hanging. And I saw the nail and I tried to hang it because there was a hook on the back, and it just wouldn't hold. So I stuck the nail a little further out and try again. And I tried half a dozen ways and the picture wouldn't stay. I just kept falling into my hands, literally. So I took it as okay, enough is enough. Tulsi Devi is being very kind to me and giving me Shishira Raman as a devotional souvenir, if one can say that. So I took that picture, this picture, and always kept it with me wherever I went. And whenever I went to Vrindavan, I will immediately go to see Radha Raman. So I asked one of the Mahants, one of the Goswamis, because Radha Raman is very small, maybe 8 inches tall. So it's hard to see. They put him kind of in a receded altar. So there are some festivals where they bring him further out. So I asked one of the Goswamis, how can I get closer to Radha Raman? And he said to me, oh, pray to be born as one of in the family of a Goswami. So I said, I'd rather not do that, but thanks anyway. So I'll look from a distance like everybody else. So here it is, the beloved deity of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. Okay.
Wonderful story, Prabhu. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to Gopal Bhatta Goswami, all glories to Radha Ramanji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Hari Hari.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Shiva Sari Ho Abhata Jai Shri Krishna Shri